Welcome back to Final Score Friday. Sponsored by Richmond Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics and Loyalty Automotive.
Welcome back to the fifth quarter here. Final Score Friday, week one. Sean and Lane joined by the cheerleaders from Patrick Henry, talking about three of the biggest games that we saw in week one. And we're going to have to start with the team that made the biggest road trip this week, almost 1,000 miles. Highland Springs going down to Miami, Florida to take on Mirimar, both nationally ranked teams. Mirimar, the alma mater of Highland Springs head coach Lauren Johnson, and I'm hearing about this win from folks in Blacksburg tonight because that's how much they are paying attention to the former Hokie Lauren Johnson taking his team all the way down to his alma mater and winning. Now, Lauren promised a tight game. He said it wasn't going to be a blowout, and he was right.
No question about it. Mirimar was not going to just lay down against the state champs in Class 5, and they had it. It was 20-6 at one point, Highland Springs, and Mirimar scored a late touchdown, but you had Christian Martin, the Maryland commit, scoring. You had Noah Jenkins, a Virginia Tech commit, who also scored. Mirimar made it close late, but the Highland Springs defense, another fourth down stop. Credit Coach Simmons for making the adjustments to get the victory. And we had to go back, I want to say, was it 2016?
Yes.
The last loss, true road game loss for Highland Springs was back in September of 2016 when that took place. So that streak continues for Highland Springs as they go on the road in Florida and pick up a big victory over Miramar.
Lauren Johnson said the team will play anybody, anywhere, anytime, and they'll go to find good competition. Now, all their games may not be that tough, so that's probably a really good outcome. A really good game that Lauren Johnson wanted. Test his guys, see what they've got in week one. The game you went to tonight, Hermitage, perennial power up here, taking on Oscar Smith, who has just had nightmares for Division VI schools around here once we get to the playoffs lately.
No question. It was an interesting game because at one point you thought Oscar Smith would pull away. We see the special teams come into play, the block field goal, and then they return it for 6. And we thought, hey, maybe Oscar Smith would pull away. And Hermitage just kept coming and coming and coming. At one point, they got it to within one possession in the third quarter. They had a 4th and 1 opportunity. They had an illegal motion penalty called against them that made it 4th and 6. They turned it over on downs. Oscar Smith would score on the next possession, and that basically opened it up for them in the third quarter. But I'm going to tell you what, you talked to Coach Jean-Pierre, in the offseason. He mentioned this was going to be a young team, but he said they were going to put on the show. They made some believers, I think, in this ball game that they thought Oscar Smith was going to come up here and run through Hermitage, and Hermitage was like, no. Hermitage lost by 14. That score, 39-25, much closer. The game was much closer than that 14-point outcome.
And Coach Jean-Pierre felt that his team was just as talented as Oscar Smith, but maybe he found out tonight that Oscar Smith, those kids have been in a few more battles with his young team, but this is what you need. You need experience like this because you don't get it by just going through practice.
And one other note, Andre Clark Jr., highly touted standout for Hermitage. He missed most of that second half. He had cramps. He missed the most of that, and I think that's when also the swing shifted to Oscar Smith in that game as well.
And one of the other great showings tonight was Varina, one season removed from a Class 4 state title. They went on the road as well down to Indian River. Again, you're going to see a lot of these teams going out of the area, out of the 804 to find competition because a lot of these teams were playing schools around here in the old Capital District, the old Colonial District, that really weren't competitive. So in order to move those off their schedule and get more competition, they're going to go down to 7-5-7. And Varina in a slugfest. Marcus Lewis has kind of a young team. He had to replace some guys on his offensive and defensive lines. He has a couple of guys that are playing on Saturdays again this year. But they go down there. They not only pitch a shutout, but it's, again, another tough game. Varina may not have that many close games this year. They may have games where their starters are sitting by the third quarter. Not tonight. They played the whole game and they earned it.
And you see a lot of these, especially the 804 schools. Highland Springs will play Maury later this year. Dinwiddie will play Maury this year. Varina played Indian River. Petersburg played Booker T.
Right.
You'll see that in the playoffs. So I think what they're doing is, okay, let's get an idea of maybe how these teams are going to play in the 7-5-7, maybe the officiating, if we have to go on the road, how different it is than the officiating up here. Let's get that out of the way early on, and then that probably will help us out in the postseason. And we saw some teams from our area go on the road to the 757 and pick up victories in week 0.
Speaking of the officiating, 2 requests from Sean and I. Guys, cover your knees. They're going to throw you off the field. I must have seen it a dozen times tonight at the one game I went to. It's a rule the VHSL is making them pay attention to. Knee pads over the knees. Put them over the knees.
Right
Just
there.
do it.
There you go.
Avoid the problem. And PA announcers.
Uh-oh.
The losing score doesn't go first. I'm going to ask the referees to throw 15-yard penalty flags on PA announcers that insist on calling the score 0-14. No, we don't do that. Please. We're just asking. It's week 1. Don't make this a long season. Anyway, thanks for stopping by for the 5th quarter. For all your week 1 scores and highlights, just go to the Final Score Friday page at WTVR.com. Sean and I will be back next week for week 2 of Final Score Friday. So long.
Preach!
Everyone.